My creepy McDonald's coworker. I like to start by saying at the age this story took place, I was still incredibly naive, but I'd like to think that I took this experience and grew from it. I was 16 years old. I just got my first job at McDonald's, and I was meeting a bunch of new people through my new job. I loved it at first. I met Van a few weeks into my new job and he seemed okay, if not a little bit too friendly, but whatever. Everyone tells you to be accepting and nice and blah blah blah, and I didn't want to start trouble right off the bat. Anyways, he's always trying to make small talk with me at work, so much so that he gets in trouble for distracting me. Again, whatever. I think he must not have a lot of friends. He asked for my number, and at this point in my life, I have no idea how to say no, so I just give it to him. We text about normal things. He starts to grow on me because he's always been nice even outside of work. Lots of guys takes getting numbers as the okay to ask or send nudes and whatever, but Van hasn't, which I appreciate. At the time in my life, my parents worked late in the night an hour away. I didn't have a car or my license, and we lived in the middle of nowhere. I've been asked to stay late one day. My mom said I could do it if I could get a ride to my grandmother's, where my younger siblings already were. I really need money, as I'm saving up for a car, so I ask around and Van volunteers. My mom says okay, so we're all good to go. I stay only about 2 hours later, and I ask Van to run by my house so I can get changed and grab a few things for my overnight stay with my grandma. He says sure, and off we go. When we get there, I try to say, okay, I'll be right back. He asks if we have to get to my grandma's right away or if maybe we had time for a movie. I reluctantly say okay, not because he made me feel uneasy at this point, but because my younger siblings were heathens and I knew my grandma needed my help. However, I didn't want to seem rude as he was giving me a ride completely out of his way a whole town over. We go inside to my room and I go change in the bathroom, come back, get the movie set up and just kind of sit down by him on my bed, completely alone in my house. We're sitting there while the movie begins and he puts his arm around me and I'm like, oh what? Because in my eyes, he never acted like he was into me, as if the seeking me out at work and going on his way to give me a ride weren't obvious clues. I just kind of hunched over in discomfort, but I don't come right out and tell him to stop, because at this point, I'm becoming a little uneasy. He's over 6 feet tall and brags about hitting the gym. I'm 5'3" and barely 120, of just fluff. There's no way I'm fighting this guy off. I don't know why he thinks this is okay, because I never tried to lead him on or give him any indications that I had feelings for him. For whatever reason, Van sees my reaction as an affirmation that I like what's happening, because then this mother hugger leans over and starts kissing me. I am disgusted. I know I can't punch him or otherwise fight, so I do the only thing that makes a reasonable amount of sense. I bite the shit out of his lip to get him off of me. He pulls away and has this absolute bat crazy look in his eyes. He says, and I quote, "Biting only makes me go harder." What? So, I am in a full-blown panic by now. I have absolutely no idea how to get away or where to go. The land we live on is nothing but fields for miles around. He could easily overtake me if I try to run. I truly think I'm going to get raped. A few seconds after that, the phone rings. Thank God. It was my mother asking where I was. I told her we were just about to leave and looked over at him. He has the most disappointed look on his face. I got off the phone with my mom, and all of a sudden he just smiles. He's completely fine with just leaving, and even helps me with my bag. He takes me directly to my grandma's and drops me off. Before he has even left our street, he is texting me talking about how great our first kiss was and hey, I had such a good time and all this stuff. I promptly blocked his number and his Facebook. Thankfully, I didn't work at that particular store much longer, and up until I quit, I never saw him again. I heard he quit because he got a new job at a 5-star restaurant. We don't have those where I live. It's a pretty seedy little town, surrounded by pretty seedy bigger towns. I realize now that I should have told someone this, but I was so afraid I would somehow get in trouble. I never brought it up to any adults. Anyways, Van from work, let's never meet again. Coworker literally held me hostage to perform satanic ritual and debate Stendhal. When I was 24 years old, I moved to LA and took a job as an ESL teacher at a private school for international students. I had very little experience teaching, so one of the other instructors, Heather, took me under her wing. I thought Heather was pretty cool. She was in her early 30s, had traveled the world, had been a professional ski instructor in Colorado and seemed like a fairly put-together individual. We went to book fairs, shopping, had lunch on a regular basis, and nothing ever seemed off or unusual about her. One night around 10 p.m., I got a frantic call from Heather. She seemed genuinely panicked and told me someone was trying to hurt her. She was crying so hard I couldn't make out most of what she was saying. She said she was driving to my house and she was going to stay on her portable phone until it lost signal. This was before cell phones were common. About 20 minutes later, she shows up at my door drunk off her ass, still clutching her phone. She tells me her mother is a satanic witch and is trying to cast a spell on her to kill her, that she needs to be somewhere safe. After spending an hour trying to calm her down, she asks if she can use my phone. I say, sure, and she proceeds to call her ex-boyfriend long distance from my house 12 times to leave creepy Linda Blair growlings and unintelligible animal noises on his answering machine. By now, I am desperate to get rid of her and more than a little afraid. I didn't own a car, so I offered to drive her home in her car, and she said that she would give me cash to take a cab home. She lived about 7 miles away, so it did not take long to get her there. She begged me to come up to her apartment to make sure it was safe. I get into her apartment, and things got ugly quickly. I tell her, well, looks safe to me. I best be on my way, and she suddenly turns around with the most evil and predatory look on her face, points a can of what looks to be fucking bear mace at me and says, you are not going anywhere. This was some seriously creepy serial killer behavior. I cooperated with her as best as I could, participating in a weird ritual she concocted to protect her from her mother's spell, watching her roll her eyes, contort her body, and make gurgling noises, speaking in tongues, and every once in a while, she would lunge at me and hiss like a lizard. The entire time, she had the can of mace in one hand, and I was waving around a butcher knife in the other hand. She kept stabbing an imaginary demon with a knife and making hissing noises. It was unreal. When she seemed to calm down a bit, she made me sit on her couch and debate the difference between Stendhal's view of the French aristocracy versus Desade's. I shit you not, she was mostly incoherent, and I haven't even read Stendhal, so the conversation was sort of like the scene in The Vampire's Kiss, where Nicolas Cage is talking to his imaginary girlfriend on the street at the end. I tried to act normal, like we were just having a typical conversation, and I didn't have a ginormous can of mace pointed right at me. Every once in a while, I would casually mention that I should probably head out, and she would begin to get agitated again, even once barking at me like a dog, until I sat back down. By this point, I was more tired and angry than afraid, but her behavior was so unpredictable, I couldn't be sure what she was capable of. She mentioned having a gun and asked me if I wanted to see it, and I thankfully managed to distract her by offering to make her another drink. This lasted several hours. She always had either the mace or the knife in her hand, usually both, and at one point, she even had me get out her family photo albums for us to look at. She continued to drink more, and each time she had to pee, she left the door to the bathroom open so she could see me. Since the bathroom was across the front door, I didn't want to risk it. Finally, she became so drunk that she forgot to leave the door open, and I made my escape. I ran down the steps of our apartment building and out into the streets of Hollywood at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. I'd only been living there a few months. I had no idea where I was. I had no money. I didn't know where the ATM was, and I didn't have anyone I could call for help. I started walking, and a cab pulled over and asked me if I needed a ride. I explained the situation to the driver, and he took pity on me and drove me home for free. The following Monday at work, she acted like nothing had happened. She didn't even seem to remember calling me that night, but I said nothing. I avoided her like the plague, and eventually left that job about 2 weeks later for a better paying one. Creepy coworker. I had a friend once who was a coworker, and he had a thing for me and my sister. I didn't really affect our friendship or work. We just remained friends. He was always trying to change my mind, eventually started making sexual comments about me, etc. Now this was his first offense, so I didn't immediately just cut ties and be done with him. But we went on break together one night, and it was so cold, so I got in his car to smoke a cigarette with him. I was texting and he took my phone, put it in his pants, and told me I have to get it out to get it back. Gross. One night, a group of people from work got together, and I don't remember where they went, but it was just me and him alone in a room, and let's just say he whipped it out and flashed me. I felt uncomfortable, so I left. These kinds of things eventually did make me stop communicating with him, but just a few months ago I ran into a group of old coworkers and mutual friends that asked if it was true if me and my sister had a threesome with him. Dumbfounded, I said no, and asked where they heard these rumors. They said he told everyone, coworkers, mutual friends, very detailed descriptions of said threesome. He also gave descriptions of me and him, one-on-one. I never so much as kissed him or even held his hand. Needless to say, we are no longer friends, and I avoid him at all costs when I run into him. Creep. Coworker from hell. This is my first ever submission, so please excuse any Reddit faux pas. Sorry if it's so long. I was just reminded today of some unfortunate incidences that compelled to finally quit lurking and share my story. It's probably not as creepy as some of the other stories on here, but when I'm reminded of it, it still gives me shivers. This all started in 11th grade and continued for almost a year. I worked as a supervisor at a drugstore where we would regularly hire a bunch of new high school age employees at once, so I didn't have any issues when Jay started working there. He was my age and seemed like a bit of a weird guy. Nearly everyone who worked there found him to be annoying as hell. He was also a serial liar and would make up lots of obviously fabricated stories to get attention. I figured he didn't have very many friends, and I knew that he was homeschooled, so maybe it was just that he didn't have as much of a chance as the rest of us to socialize with people his own age, so I left him alone about it. I usually just smiled and nodded, even when I knew he was full of shit. Anyways, Jay seemed to appreciate that I didn't immediately blow him off every time he spoke to me, so he would seek me out during shifts to chat. Our phone numbers are posted in the employee office, so he eventually added my number and started to text me as well. He wasn't the best conversationalist, but he seemed harmless, so I also have an abnormally high level of patience, so I didn't see any reason to ask him to stop. One day he texted me, asking me out. I hadn't known him for that long, and to be honest, I didn't find him attractive at all. His personality also wasn't great, so I generally told him no thanks. He persisted though, of course, but I really didn't find anything about him to be appealing. I just kept rejecting his offers again and again, even when he started to beg. I figured this had gone on too far, so I told him that he had to really stop asking me, and that I didn't want to talk to him anymore. A few weeks go by, then he started sending me distress messages. He went on about how he was depressed, and how he hated his life, and how his parents and brothers were both physically and emotionally abusive to him. How his older brother molested Jay and his sister as kids. How his parents were kinky sex addicts, on and on and on and on. I kept telling him to get help from a professional or a distress center, and that I was not the person to be dealing with this whole situation. Then he started talking about his own life, and the idea of taking it. This is when shit started to get real. He refused to confess these things to anyone but me. He would text me late at night, saying that he didn't want to wake up in the morning. I knew that this kid often lied to get attention, but this was something that I assumed he wouldn't joke around about. Besides, I wasn't about to accuse him of being a liar because I didn't want to be the one responsible for pushing him over the edge like that. So I would stay up all night with him, begging and pleading him not to do it. He started to get really morbid and described different methods of suicides that he was contemplating. Multiple times, he stopped responding to me for several hours, and I would panic and try calling his home phone. Once his mom answered, I asked her if he was alright. She was really confused and told me that yeah, he was fine, and that he was at some music class or something like that. I would flip my shit at him for scaring me like that, and then he would flip his shit right back at me because I called his house number. Apparently, he didn't want anyone to know about his depression, and if I dared to send the cops after him, he would just do it faster. I started to get incredibly stressed out, feeling that all the pressure was on me to keep this kid alive. I had to constantly reassure him that I was there for him, while secretly resenting him for putting me through this whole situation. Looking back, I probably should have just called 911. Then he started asking me out again, saying I was the only reason he was alive. He started using his depression as leverage. This is when I started to clue into what he was doing. I couldn't believe it. As if he would sink so low. So I gave him shit and I started ignoring him once and for all. Another few weeks passed. He texted me to tell me that he was going to his friend's cottage and that there would be likely girls there, mentioning that this is my last chance to change my mind. I told him to go ahead and to have fun. The first day of his cottage visit, he meets Jessie, and of course texts me about her right away. He won't shut up about her body and such, but I figure it's cause he's just a weird horny boy. I'm already not believing this. If you saw this kid, you would be clear that he's not the type that girls would throw themselves at. And it gets weirder as he goes on about how she's so into him already, and how she took off her top when she was swimming with him that afternoon. Then how that night she would beg for him. I told him, fine, it's good that you finally have someone in your life. It doesn't stop, of course, with him rambling on and on about how he tied her up and rubbed her breasts, and how she would bend and moan. Then he starts talking about doing her, and he started asking me for opinions on position. This is what he would send me. So, what would you prefer, bending tire over a table or chains spread eagled on the bed? So naturally, I told him to stop texting me kinky shit. Then, because I was pissed, I wanted to tell him that I don't believe any of this, and that he needs to get a life. Anyways, he sent me a picture of a gagged, tied-up brunette lying on the fucking floor of the garage to prove she's real or something. I don't know. After that, I stopped replying. In another few weeks, his friend starts texting me from the same number, claiming that Jay left his phone unlocked. He said that Jay was obsessed with me, and that he had to leave Jesse behind at the cottage. Then he started asking questions about what I thought of Jay, trying to get me to say something bad about him. In my mind, I called bullshit on it right away, but I still didn't reply. Then a few days later, he starts bumping into me at places where I didn't tell him I would be. A few times is coincidence, but I mean every day, when he finally showed up at my driver's ed school, a place he had zero business being at, considering it was way across town from where we both lived. I really started to freak out. He must have been following me, because not even my closest friends knew that I was taking that class. I would avoid his gaze as much as I could, and take off as soon as we were dismissed. The text resumed, this time saying things like, please let me tie you up, it would be fun, or I can be gentle, let me tie you up and touch you. The worst was, if you don't let me, then I'll do it by force. I will find you and take you and tie you up so tight, creepy shit. Then he randomly transfers my high school, chooses a locker only a couple away from mine, and starts joining all the same clubs as me. That was the final straw. I let loose on him, screaming that I knew he used his depression as leverage, that I knew Jesse was made up, that it was him texting me, not his friend, and that he was fucking weird and need to stay the hell away from me. He started to make an excuse for his actions, like, oh, I was drunk and I sent that, but in the end he admitted I was right about everything. I told him if he tried to talk to me again, besides at work about work-related things, I would call the cops. I guess he got the message because after that he left me alone. A month later, I heard rumors he was trying to pick up the new cashier girl, who was only about 14 or 15 years old. She admitted to me that he was being really perverted and talking about bondage and gags to her. And another friend who was a lesbian at the store told me he was creeping her out as well, and that he was going to force her and her girlfriend to have a threesome with him. I could handle him creeping on me by myself, but I wasn't about to let him torment a 14-year-old or friend my friend, so I got him fired. I kept all her messages as evidence, and that's the last I heard from him, save for a few instances when he tried to reconcile, saying that he was sorry. He was still asking for me to give him a chance at the time. I blocked him on Facebook, but he made a new account and tried to add me again recently, 3 years later. Anyways, we were all lucky that we stopped him before he had the chance to carry out any of his threats, and I'm quite proud of my 16-year-old self for handling as well as I did. Being stalked was an experience I won't soon be able to forget. My coworker wants me to be kidnapped. This week has the most insane week in my 4 years in retail. I'm sure that any other booksellers out there will agree that we attract some of the weirdest customers. This past Monday was supposed to be my day off. However, for my third day in a row, I might add, I was called to help out at the store. So I come around and running the customer service desk solo when I'm finally allowed to take a breather. I drive to a local Subway for a sandwich and a cookie, standard 30-minute lunch break deal. When I clock back in, the new guy from the receiving department hands me a sticky note and walks away. On the note is a man's name and phone number. The message on the back says that he was watching me earlier that day, but didn't get a chance to talk to me because I was so busy. It said that he would like to see me again really soon. Needless to say, I was creeped out. I went to get an explanation from my coworker who said that this Calvin was a 31-year-old man who wanted to take me out to a nice dinner. My coworker also said that he recommended this Calvin come see me at work sometime to get to know me. My coworker said he did not give up my full schedule, but now I am stressed out watching my back whenever I go to and from work for this creepy guy to come up and ask me out. Oh, and did I forget to mention that I look 16? My coworker became my worst nightmare. This happened last year at a new job. This guy, Mike, was in charge of my training. At first, he seemed like a nice guy. We talked about common interests, had lunch together, normal things coworkers do. Then one day, he started to overshare things from his personal life, like, I hate my wife, who I knew was pregnant at the time, and if I told you I cut myself in a place that only God and I can see, would you want to know where? Now keep in mind, I'd known for the guy for like all of 3 weeks when this started happening, and the most personal thing I'd ever shared was that I'd been on Prozac in my first year of college, which I didn't think was a big deal because doctors prescribed it like candy anyways. Whatever. I didn't want to piss him off because what if he started bad-mouthing me to the managers? Still, I did my best to change the subject when he went too far, which was honestly becoming a daily thing. I also avoided being alone with him as much as possible. That didn't stop Mike from deciding that I was now his best friend/sister. He started actually referring to me as a sister from another mother, and then just his sister in front of other people from the office. The first couple of times he did it, I laughed out loud. But then it stopped being funny because in his mind, this was now a fact. He even tried to make the relationship official on Facebook. By this point, my actual biological brother was itching to have a talk with this guy, but I told him it wasn't a big deal, and I tried to gently extricate myself from the situation. Well, gently extricating myself didn't work. I was having lunch with this other guy from work in the cantina one day. Background: this is a guy who finished the same course I did, different year though, and we had lots to talk about, and I really like having someone around my age to talk to. Anyways, I could see Mike giving him the stink eye from across the room. He was eating alone, in a very obvious "look what you're doing to me" display. The same evening, other guy messages me on Facebook telling me Mike's texting him over Slack about me. We use Slack at work, and some people have it on their phone for out-of-hour stuff. He shows me screenshots of the conversation. Mike basically says shit like, I'll protect her to my dying breath from scum like you, and if you break her heart, I'll break you. This is some of the most cringe and disturbing stuff I've ever read that I actually know in real life. Other guy rightfully asked me what the hell is going on. Did I tell Mike we're together or something like that? Because if I did, he apologized if he sent me the wrong signals. But we were most definitely not together. I'm pretty pissed by now. Not just because this is threatening one of the few friendships I have at work, but because this is all fucked up all around. So I messaged Mike asking him to stop threatening my friend, while also apologizing to the other guy over the misunderstandings. Mike texts back, I'm just looking out for you. That's what brothers do, okay? Deep breath. This is happening. I messaged him telling them that he's a very good friend, emphasis on friend, but I don't need to be looked out for. Really, I don't. He comes back with, then I'll just protect you from the shadows, and a winky face. He says some other cringe stuff about me being young and naive, which makes me a target. By this point, I'm 300% done with whatever he thinks, so I just block him. The next morning, Mike comes in late, sits his ass down, and immediately texts me on Slack, are you okay? But I ignore it. But later he gets up to do his smoke break, and he goes past my desk, and he says, hey, I slacked you, did you see? Yeah, I saw, but I'm not doing this anymore. I pull up some generic, sorry I'm busy line, and mind my own business. Lunch comes and goes. The day goes on without a word from him, until about 10 minutes before it's time to go home, when I get a wall of text on my Slack that basically makes me realize what's happening. He thinks I'm lashing out because I'm hurt and angry because of my trauma. I assume he's talking about my depressive episode from years ago. He says he'll stand by his dear friend because he made a promise to be my brother and defender, and he's not going to take the easy way out and let me go just because I'm hurt. He actually wants me to take out my pain and anger out on him because he can take it. I'm sitting there reading this, and all I can think is, what the fuck? Mike logs off for the day as I'm still processing all of this. I go down to the parking lot some 20 minutes later, and there he is, smoking next to his car. I ignore him as I walk past, and he just stands there unmoving and staring at me as I get into my car and drive away. This is where I start to think about talking to a manager. We have 2 managers, a younger guy and a woman. Let's call them Pete and Pam. I start writing this long email to both of them, and also thought of talking to other guy to back me up. In the end, I decided not to. Mike had a kid on the way and he's clearly in need of some mental help, which he probably wasn't getting. I wasn't about to get him fired and take away his livelihood. Spoiler alert, I lived to regret that. Things were, dare I say it, normal for a while after. Sure, I caught Mike staring at me a few times, but I pretended not to notice. Then after a few weeks of nothing, one of the other girls on our team says he's something to tell me. Let's call her Nice Girl, because she ended up helping me a couple times after that, so Nice Girl and I go out for coffee at lunch. She tells me that Mike has been talking to other coworkers about me and my hurt, and how I'm struggling with my depression, and it's so bad it's even making me push family away. How he's been trying to help me, and it breaks his heart that I'm not letting him do it, because he cares for me so very much. How many people he has been talking to. Nice Girl knows about at least one other person. Fuck. This makes me livid. You can't just go around telling people someone is mentally ill just to make yourself look like a fucking saint. I mean, who does that? Now, it's definitely time to talk to the managers. I Slack Pete, the youngest manager, and ask for a quick one-to-one, and he immediately agrees and says, "Great. Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you. Pam will be joining too. Just need to get her down there." Pam's on a different floor. Crap, oh well, I guess this is really happening. So we meet later the same day and Pete starts to ask how I'm getting on, if I'm getting along with the rest of the team, and so on and so on. I have a feeling I know where this is going. Sure as rain, he says, "Mike's been saying lots of good things about you, but his face isn't the face of a man who heard good things." All the while, Pam is sitting there not really saying anything, just nodding and smiling in a way that makes me a bit uncomfortable. I'm starting to get super anxious because I'm a non-confrontational person usually, and I hate drama, but Mike crossed all the lines. Still trying to be nice, I say, "Look, I think I gave Mike the wrong impression, and I give them a whitewashed version of what's been going on." At this point, Pam asks me, "Did you ask him to stop?" Well, not really, but I'm assuming blocking him on Facebook and not engaging him on Slack or offline sends the same message. Pam then proceeds to give me bullshit advice like, if he starts talking about inappropriate things, tell him you're not comfortable with this, and don't engage with him in personal circumstances or outside of work. They also promise they'll assign someone else as my trainer and mentor, and they'll talk to him over spreading inappropriate rumors, which I insist again are not true. Another week goes by, and Nice Girl, myself, and another guy who's friends with her are all heading out to get coffee. As soon as we walk in the door of the place, there's fucking Mike with 2 cups of coffee, and one of them has my name on it. He tries to give that one to me and says something about it being just the way I like it, but my heart is racing as fast as I can't even make out what it is, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a heart attack there and then. By the time I get a grip, Mike's gone and Nice Girl is looking very concerned, asking if I'm okay and saying I look like death. We end up outside, while Nice Girl's friend is waiting in line. I'm shaking and trying not to cry. She asks what's going on, so I tell her some of the things Mike has been doing. By the end of it, she looks disturbed and says I should talk to the managers. Well, I already did. She says, "Tell him about today." Part of my brain stupidly thinks, but he just wanted to buy me coffee. But I can't really pretend I'm okay with any of this anymore. As soon as we're back in the office, I go straight to Pam. This time I tell Pam everything, including how Mike threatened someone else over having lunch with me, and how he stares at me a lot, and he sends me a long and creepy text on Slack that proves he's delusional. She asks to see the text. I say I'll forward it. She asks me to forward everything else I have, not that she doesn't believe me, but she wants to fully understand the extent of the problem. She says it with the same knowing and understanding smile from the last meeting. She also asks me, "Has he been following you outside work?" Now, she already knows about the coffee incident, and I tell her about the staring in the parking lot. There's another pause. Then she says, "Well, obviously, we can't fire him," and my heart sinks. But apparently this isn't serious enough for them to boot him, though they can discipline him for using the company's Slack inappropriately. She asked if I'd like to transfer to another team, but I still have to work in the same building as the psycho. Finally, she suggests a mediation, a meeting including her, someone from HR, Mike, and me. She doesn't sound very convinced it'll do anything, and neither am I, to be honest. I'm panicking, just thinking about talking to him again. Did I agree to mediation? Of course I did. Did it help? Of course it didn't. Let me just start by saying I was super anxious throughout. I was literally shaking. I did my best in state of neutral terms that I want to have a professional relationship with Mike, and only that. I'm not comfortable with him oversharing personal information or talking to other people about my problems, which aren't even fucking real. Throughout this whole damn thing, he was sitting there saying, "Yeah, okay, with a shit-eating grin on his face, like we're just playing pretend. The only time he had any other reaction was when I indirectly said he's been making stuff about me. He said something like, "Well, you kinda told me that, remember?" As if that would make any of it okay. The same day I got a Slack message from him saying, "If you wanted me to give you some space, you should have just asked. No need to go to HR about it." He wasn't sitting at his desk, but he was probably still in the building somewhere. Otherwise, I'm pretty confident I would have lost my shit right then and there. I sent back something along the lines of, "Well, I'm saying it now. Please don't ever talk to me again." To which he replies, "But we work together, silly," and a winky face. This is already pretty long, so I won't detail everything else that happened. Not long after this HR mediation thing, my brother was picking me up from work one day because his car was in the shop. For a bit of background information, my brother is a pretty big guy, but he's a non-violent person, even if he looks intimidating. I'm getting in the car, and Mike is there too, smoking in his car and giving us the meanest, stinkiest look you can imagine from a person. This isn't just staring anymore, it's "I'll kill you in your sleep" staring. My brother notices and asks me if this is the guy. "Yeah, but just drive," I say. Before I can stop him, he's already walking over. Mike starts getting verbally abusive. As soon as he sees my brother coming over, he's getting nasty, saying shit like, "Nigga, stop right you and we'll run you over," and "I have a gun, bitch, I have a gun." This is where I lose it. I walk over and start screaming at him. I never in my life let loose on someone like this before or since. I honestly scared myself that time. At some point, Mike just drives off while I'm in the middle of it. I was hysterical for the rest of the evening, and I called in sick the next day because I couldn't stand the thought of being anywhere near this person ever again. When I was out sick, I received a text from an unsaved number saying, "Bitch." Just that. My brother was already telling me that I should quit the job and get a restraining order against this freak, because it was obvious people in the workplace weren't going to protect me. No job in the world was worth dealing with something like this, right? I could stay with him and his girlfriend for a while if I was worried about money. My mind still wasn't made up, but the same evening I received a picture message of a man slitting his wrists. You know how they say go down the street, not across the road? This was across the road, but it was really messy and bloody. I couldn't see a face in the picture, but it was painfully obvious that this was Mike fucking with me. I blocked the number and quit the job the next day. I also stayed with my brother and his girlfriend for a while, but Mike never tried to get in touch again. That is until last week. You know how LinkedIn has the people who look at your profile thing? And sometimes it shows you their photo even if you don't have the paid subscription? Well, last week I saw that Mike Stalker had looked at my profile. He's still with that company. Needless to say, I'm freaking the fuck out. Especially because I'm sure LinkedIn showed him I looked at his profile too. I started writing this as a way to keep track of everything that's happened between me and Mike, because if he does or say anything, if he happens to just walk by my current workplace, or if he messages me, I'm going straight to the police. But since I've been a long time lurker on this sub, I thought I'd post here too. So, Mike, let's not meet again. Ever. Crazy coworker falls in love. This happened to me just this year. I started working at a small local pizza place. My job was to run the register. It was an easy enough job, and I often found myself with nothing to do. During the daytime, the store was extremely slow, so it'd just be me and the pizza chef in the back. We had 3 chefs, one who went to the same university as me, and a similar program. Naturally, we became quick friends. What with me having free time to talk. It started innocently enough, our friendship. We talked about our majors, art, life in general. We started getting closer as months went on. He played in a band, so he invited me to a show. I don't really like music, so I said no, but I said we could hang out some other time. I never really intended on doing so, but I was just trying to be nice. At this time, I was living with my boyfriend, and I was also unable to drive. One day, my friend invited me downtown to drink. Unable to drive to her, I told my coworker how badly I wanted to go, and how annoying it was that I couldn't drive. He offered to drive me. I figured there was nothing wrong with hanging out in a group, so I agreed. We went out and hung out with my friend one more time after that. On the way back, he tells me that he's in love with me and wants to marry me. I was nice and let him down softly. I was trying to not offend him, but I did say I'm not interested in him, boyfriend or not. I told him that he and I could no longer hang out outside of work. I told my boyfriend about what happened. He was already suspicious of the coworker and greatly disliked him. My boyfriend is very protective, so he took it upon himself to talk to our coworker at the store's Christmas party. As we were driving back from the party, my boyfriend turns to me and says, "So, the coworker is crazy." I asked why, and he proceeded to tell me that Jeremy, the coworker, had told him that he could never stop him from loving me, that he was going to run away with me, and that he, Jeremy, was an angel sent from God to protect me. I had a bit too much to drink that night, and I knew that my boyfriend really disliked Jeremy, so I assumed that there was some exaggeration going on. Flash forward to Christmas Eve. It was predictably slow, so I sat on the counter playing on my phone. I was pissed about work, so I was being antisocial. Jeremy was also working that shift, so just him and I alone in the store. He kept trying to start conversations with me, and I just ignored him, finally telling him to bug off. I didn't want to talk. He then got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. I figured it was just an awkward joke, and then I asked him to go away. He then stated that he was serious. I said no. He then got upset and asked why not. Because I don't love you, I said. He asked if I wanted to marry my boyfriend. I told him that he was making me uncomfortable and to leave me alone. Then asked me if I was the devil, and that I didn't love my boyfriend and that he loved me. I repeated again that he should leave me alone, that if he didn't, I would call our boss. He went into the back. It was finally closing time and I was nearly done. I was not allowed to leave until the chef is done closing. Then I have to lock the doors. As I was almost done mopping, he comes back out with his nuts look on his face. He clocks out. I tell him that if he's finished up that he should go. He says no, he has to do something in the back, but first he's going to tell me about his beliefs. So he begins to yell at me about God, the devil, and how he's an angel sent from God, here to protect me. I freak the fuck out. I start yelling for him to go in the back and proceed to call my boss, who did not pick up. So I called a coworker and told him that I need to leave and for him to come in. He did. On my way home, I finally reached my boss, who said that he was worried something like this might happen, and said he would take care of it. He did not. He asked Jeremy what happened, who of course lied. My boss then told me that I had no proof and that it must have been my fault. Not even joking, it was like being in the 50s. Jeremy would not be fired, but I was welcome to quit. I simply said that I didn't want to be left alone with him. I was told that that was also impossible. I was pissed because my boss also told me that ever since I started working there, Jeremy told all the employees and even other customers that he was in love with me. He also told me that another girl had quit because of Jeremy. Again, this is the same boss who said it was my fucking fault. So I took action. I knew that Jeremy was obviously nuts, and that it was only a matter of time before he did something crazy again. This time, I would be ready. Sure enough, a few days later, I got him to admit the whole thing on camera. I told him to tell my boss the truth, and I would ask my boss to save his job, which was a lie, or I would show Marcus and the police. He quit the next day, and I have not seen him since. Thank you for reading.